Hello lovely people, I'm K3N and welcome to week 38 of our weekly Stitch Along project for 2024. And I'm very excited this week because this is the first of the Monday projects that I've actually filmed in my new home. So I'm sitting at my new desk, which you would have seen if you watched my video on Friday, Park Home Life. That's brackets in case you're wondering why I'm doing that with my hands. This week I want to look at doing kind of freeform embroidery using bits and bobs of stuff. I'm getting very technical, but taking inspiration from nature or something else. So it's about texture, and I've got this book to show you that a friend of mine gave me a little while ago because she'd read it and wasn't interested in it anymore, and I've had a Google and it is available both new and secondhand. So it's called The Art of Embroidery, Inspirational Stitches, Textures and Surfaces, and it's by Françoise Tellier-Loumagne, but it is in English, and it's published by Thames and Hudson. So I've marked a few pictures to show you. Some of it is about machine embroidery and some of it's hand embroidery, and she uses stuff that I don't use, like water-soluble stuff and stuffy stuff. Get on with it, Catherine. But the pictures in it are very inspirational. So anyway, I'll show you some. So this one, the first one here, was just to say, because I said about nature, being inspired by nature. This is a photograph here on the left. Sorry, I'll try and angle it so you can see. It's city lights. So it's taken from up high, and it's just the lights of a city at night. This page here. And then here's how she's interpreted it, with some fluffy stuff, looks like Angelina fibre or something like that, and some free-form embroidery on some black background. So when I say nature's textures, if that's not your bag, if that doesn't inspire you, then it can be anything, literally anything in the whole universe. The next one is mimosa flowers. So here's the photo of actual mimosa flowers, here where my thumb is, and then she's interpreted those in all kinds of different ways. So here it's seed stitching, and then it's bullion knots, bullion stitch, and then down at the bottom she's used beads, and then over here at the top this is chenille thread. Chenille is that fluffy thread, the stuff which is couched in little circles. This middle one here, she's actually chain stitch around, and then she's cut the stitches and fluffed it up to give that effect of turkey work. Is not done with chain stitch, I don't believe, but it's a similar thing where you cut the stitches. And then these little bobbly ones at the bottom here were actually crocheted with a very fine hook, little crochet circles which she then stitched on. So that's 6 different ways to imitate or represent the mimosa flowers, so I thought that was interesting. This next one here again is not really nature. This is the photograph, the actual photograph of railway rails with the rocks in between. And it's lovely, the contrast between the linear hard lines of the rails and then the crunchy surface of the rocks. And then here, I love this. I'll get my thread away. Here she's used a background cloth and she's pinched it. You remember when we did, what do we call it, cloth manipulation or something? She pinched and stitched to form these ridges to represent the rails. I'll try and hold it so you can see both. And then in between she's used all kinds of beads and bits and sequins and bits and bobs to represent the rocks. I just think that's fabulous. I'll leave it there so you can really admire it. So, it's coming up with inventive ways, really, to take your source, whether it's a photograph or something you find if you Google, or, actual physical, something you see in the environment, and then how would you represent that in cloth and, stuff. I keep saying stuff. And this one here is another one, which is sort of partly nature, partly not. This is a picture of the window in the morning with the condensation on it. Firstly, I would say, as a homeowner of a new home. She maybe needs to sort out her ventilation if she's got condensation that bad. But anyway, it's very beautiful. And then through there is an apple orchard, I think it says. Yes, an apple orchard. So the green shapes you see through the condensation. And then you've got the lines of the window frame. So, I mean, it's a beautiful photograph in its own right, apart from it, you know, worrying me with regards to mould growing in her house and so on. And here she's interpreted it with some cloth of some kind, with some padding in to give it some, you know, oomph. And then she's created the window frame effect with machine stitching in a grid pattern. And then into the mesh, she's stitched beads and, you know, sequins and stitching and so on. So that's how she's interpreted that. So that's that for that book. Françoise Tellier-Loumagne, The Art of Embroidery, published by Thames and Hudson. So what am I going to do? Well, I am going to take my inspiration from not a photograph, but a piece that I started, I think, 15 years ago, that I just found. When you move and you have to pack stuff, you find stuff, don't you? And I found this, and I'd almost forgotten it until I saw it. You know what I mean? And this was inspired by lichen, and it's a lot of work I've done on it already. It's like very time consuming, doing it like this, and I must get on and do more of it because I just love it. I'll hold it up and not let it go blurry. See, I've done some eyelet stitches as well. See my fingers poking. So this is stuff again. This is, what should we call it? Ephemera laid in place and stitched over. And there's some couching, some French knots, some eyelets, like I said. And it's quite free form, and it's very meditative to do. And I think how I started, if I cast my mind back and I look at it, I couched on this long wiggly line of, it looks like string even, I think it's just string, to give myself, because you've got a blank canvas otherwise, so it's like taking, you know that thing you do as a child, taking a line for a walk, where you doodle with a line and then you go back and you colour in the spaces that you make. I think it's that kind of idea. And then I've gone back in between and I've just played with all this stuff. Sorry, bit giddy. Calm down, Catherine. All the ephemera to sculpt and thinking all the time as I'm working, thinking of lichen and how it looks and the colours it is and so on and the form of it. So to even reproduce a little bit like this in an hour or so's video would be a big ask. So I'm going to do something, you know, a bit more sparse, shall we say, or a bit less busy. But this is my inspiration, so it's kind of at one remove from the actual lichen that inspired this. So I'll put that to one side for now. This was, by the way, sorry, it was just on a piece of vintage linen, which is basted onto a piece of silk noil, which is that silk that almost feels like linen, that thick silk. And it's been rust or, you know, tea or something. I've done something to it. Done something mean to it to make it beautiful. Right, so I'll put that to one side. So I've prepared myself a little cloth, the best I could do, bearing in mind I haven't unpacked everything yet. So I've got this little scrap of linen in this sort of lichen-y colour, and I've got a piece of silk noil that was very similar. And I've just done the invisible baste around the edge in advance, and that's what I'm going to work on for my journal. So here's the basket of stuff coming in. So in here I have got some bits of vintage lace that have been grunged up with tea and... Stop nibbling! Sorry, she's nibbling. With, you know, rust and tea and stuff. And let me just get a grip of myself. Oh, I've made myself laugh. And there's another bit of vintage lace. If you don't have vintage lace, you have to be inventive. I mean, I have even in the past taken the fluff out of the tumble dryer when I had a tumble dryer. This little piece of red, I got an old cushion cover out just now because Stella likes to lie under the chair here, and she was laying just on the wood floor. And I thought, oh, she needs something cosy to lay on. So I found this old cushion cover that I made years ago, and I'd torn it from the backing. I think I'd repurposed the backing cloth. So It's actually one of my hairs, that's maybe going too far. And it had all these threads hanging, so I pulled them off and they've gone in there. So that is, it's kind of real aught, you know, you couldn't really stitch with that, but you can use that as an element in your, you know, in your work. And this ditto, this came out of the little bag that I had the forethought to store with this piece that I showed you. Do you see? So it's all the bits that I think I'd washed a natural dyeing session. I'd washed all the cloth that I'd dyed. And you know when you put things through the washer, raw edge cloth, often all the bits fall off. Well, this was all the bits that I saved. So if you don't keep this kind of aughts, you know, when you tear cloth and the bits come off, you could always just go through cloth that you have and just pull some threads out of the ends of the right kinds of colours for whatever it is you've chosen, and then just, you know, sort of squidge as if you're moulding clay, but lovely dry fluffy clay instead, to create yourself a little tangly mass like that. I've also got in here, there's more of that lace. I've chosen some little bits out of the scraps that are the right kinds of colours. This is some Budleia dyed wool. This is just another piece of linen with some rust printing on. See there, that for example, you could just tear at it and get yourself some bits like that. See what I mean? You know what I mean. This is another piece of Budleia dyed. Even those bits of fluff that I'm pulling off, I'm just going to stick them in there. All adds interest. I think that's Budleia dyed silk. Well, I know it's silk, but I think it's Budleia dyed. There's a bit of commercial green that's been tea dyed, and again you see there you can pull off some of that to use. And I can also use this. I can either just use it as it is, or I could cut it thinner or tear it thinner. Can I tear it thinner? Snippy snippy fiskers, thank you Sue. It's quite hard to tear little thin bits, but it doesn't matter for this. You see there, if you wanted to tear a nice clean line, you're in trouble. But because if we want texture, that's not bad. You just kind of do that, trash it up. Let's try again up the middle. But just, you know, think of it as texture. The key word this week is texture. The key word is not stuff, it's texture. There we go, there you go, there we go. Sorry Mike, if you could hear that. And so you could twist that to couch, you know, as a sort of more sturdy element, or you could snip this up into smaller bits, you know, whatever. This is a bit of my daddy's shirt that is the right kinds of colours, so I might use bits of that. This is an actual shape. I think it fell off a skirt of mine and I kept it. It might work its way in somewhere. That's just a bit of random cloth. And that's a bit of trim that came off an old chair. Again, it's a bit grubby and, you know, raggedy. Many people would have thrown that in the bin long ago, but I kept it. So who knows, maybe it will find its way in. So that's my little collection. I've also wanted to talk about lichen generally, and I've written some facts down so I don't forget them. But let's make a start first on the stitching. So I've got my ephemera, we're calling it, my scraps, my foundation cloth. I've pulled out some colours that, you know, are in keeping, sort of greens and greys. There's another grey. Also got my aughts standing by because I can pull bits out of there. And I've got my trusty bent tulip. I think that's a number 8. Yes, that's a number 8. So that I can get different weights of thread through. And I'm just going to start. And I think I'm going to start with some of this fluffiness. I nearly said it again. I'm just going to get a bit of it. Greatly inspired by, quite a long time ago, this year, but quite some time ago, Marion did a tree as part of her weekly stitch project. And she just got a great big mass of aughts like this and slapped it down on the cloth and moulded it. Everybody that follows her, I hope you remember that. And if you don't, I'll try and remember to link it, but you know, I'll do my best. And she sculpted it into a vaguely tree shape. It is very much like sculpting. I'm not going to do anything quite so clever. I'm just going to plonk it on and stitch it down and see what happens. But yeah, it's, when you've got this, it is really like, if you think of it as dry fluffy clay, and you can then look and think, well, that's all light, maybe I want some of the darker colour in there as well. I'll have some of this, I'll pull some off. You can cut it, you can rip it, you can, you know, just slap it on there until it's pleasing to you. And I do like the idea of some of this red in there as well, this very dark red. It's maybe too long. Snip it. Dear Henry. Just sort of in a free-form way. Stay. Now I'm just going to rely on static. Let's see if it works. Do you see it works? Magic, no glue. It's not magic, it's static. And I'm just going to get some stitching through that, just to hold it in place. And the stitching, I'm going to use this that's already in the needle. This is 2 strands of embroidery floss in this old gold colour. I don't think I even need to bother with knots. I'm just going to come up somewhere, not pull my tail right through. I'm going to take a tiny back stitch because that stays better. And I'm just going to do some big stitches all over it, just where I think it's necessary to just hold it in place. And that just makes a start, you know, this is just the beginning. Just your base. Oh, the other thing you could add, sorry I didn't mention because I can't find mine. Well, I can find one tin, beads. You could use beads as well. Or sequins, or, you know, buttons, or just would depend on what your inspiration was, the kinds of things that you'd need to use. So I think I'm basically seed stitching, but it's very much just to hold everything down at this stage. I'm doing quite big stitching. See, there's no need for sticking anything or pinning anything when it's small like this. And if you wanted to do a bigger piece, just do a bit at a time, you know, don't cover a whole great big piece with loads of it and expect it to stay there while you stitch. Just do a little area and then add a bit more. And then like this bit sticking out a bit, maybe I want it to come in, I'll just push it with my needle. It's really as if you're sculpting. I'm going to pull a bit of that red over into there, I think. And I don't like this straight line here, so I'm going to come up here with this. I've jumped quite a long way, but it doesn't matter. And just do that so it's not straight. I hope the light and everything's okay. I've got my usual setup. I almost didn't put the light because there's quite a lot of natural light here, but I did put the light in the end, put the light on. So I'm just tacking it all down. I'm going to have to get some more thread now. I think maybe I squeak one more out of there, because I don't really mind if I can't finish it off properly on the back. Because, you know, there's going to be a lot more stitching going on over the top. I can do a little back stitch. It'll do pig. And even that I've snipped, I can put that in. Is it in shot? I can put that in there with all that stuff. I said it again. Oh dear. Right, I'm going in the aughts for something. I don't really mind what it is as long as it's in the right colour palette. As long as it doesn't bring everything else out. A lady asked me how I pull my threads out of that big tangly mess without them getting knotted. And I said, oh, you just pull them and they never get knotted. And look. The thing is to be gentle and not yank if you feel resistance. Tease, don't yank. There we go. Got it. That's a very long piece. Lazy girl thread. Stars. She's now itching. She won't stop until she's... There we go. And Fred's asleep on the sofa behind me. We had lovely little walk this morning, Stella and I, in the new woods here. And we met some people who had a little dog that they just a few weeks ago rescued from a rescue centre, a rescue charity here in England. And I won't tell you what they told me about her background because it's too upsetting, but she's, anyway, suffice it to say, she's now landed on her feet because they were lovely people. But they said she was really nervous of other dogs and didn't want to play, and, you know, if other dogs came up to her, she just cowered against their legs and was terrified, quite frankly. And they were absolutely amazed because Stella doesn't run up to other dogs generally. I've taught her from little not to do that because not all dogs are friendly and not all owners like it. But I was sitting on a bench and Stella was laying next to me, just looking at the trees and so on, as you do. And these people came past with this little dog and Stella just stood up wagging her tail, and the little dog came up to her, and the next minute they were both racing around like two puppies, having great fun playing, you know, taking turns, I'll chase you, you chase me, all that kind of stuff. And the people were absolutely amazed that their little dog of, I think they said they'd had her for 6 weeks or so, was playing like that. Yeah, and that's, I'm quite proud of my little Stells that she's so gentle and that she didn't finally entrusted, this little dog trusted her enough to play with her. So the people sat next to me on the bench and we had a nice chat. I'm just stitching it all down. More or less any old who. But, you know, any old who, but with a bit of thought as to where I want it. I've created an open space there, not really deliberately, I don't think. But it's just giving yourself options when you come back in later to do the fancy stitching. You've got some, it's a design principle, isn't it, to have masses and voids. I remember that when I was doing garden design. So masses and voids in a garden, the masses would be the planted beds, for example, or bushes or things like that, and then voids might be paved areas or the lawn or, you know, open areas. I think it's a design principle that applies a lot generally. I don't often have voids in my work. My work's more masses than voids generally, but yeah. And I can't say that I'm going to leave that space empty, but it hasn't got the same texture as the rest of it. Whoops, that's not really what I wanted to do. There's a little hole in the cloth there as well. That's crying out for an eyelet stitch. Right, yes, I said I was going to talk to you about lichen. I'll just finish, you know, telling you what to do, or what I'm going to do, and then I can talk about lichen and carry on doing it. Yeah, I'm just going to finish until I'm happy that everything's in place and I can say it's all held down. And then I'm going to come back in with different colours, and I might do some seed stitching, I might do some French knots, I might even, you know, cut some holes and do some eyelets. I'm going to use probably different types of threads or different thicknesses. I've only really got embroidery silk here, embroidery floss, sorry, but maybe, you know, only 2 strands or maybe the whole 6 strands or whatever, just to really build up the texture. And I also am going to get some of these bigger bits of lace and stuff and stitch some of that on here and there. Is that alright? Is that clear enough? I'll probably will say more as I go along. But yeah, lichen. I've had a thing for lichen for quite a long time, since I really learnt about it. It's an incredible organism. I just find it fascinating. Lichen is a symbiotic relationship between 2 or more often 3 different species. It's not a plant, it's not a fungus, it's not an animal. It's a combination of a plant and a fungus, or fungi actually. There's usually more than one fungus. It's a fungal colony. So when you look at a little patch of lichen, what you're seeing is either an alga, which is the singular of algae, you know the word algae, for seaweed and so on. So it's an algae, which is a plant, or a cyanobacteria, which is a bacteria that photosynthesizes like a plant. Photosynthesis, if you don't know, is the process by which plants manufacture sugar from sunlight and carbon to create food for themselves. And in many lichens, there's also a yeast involved. So the algae, the alga, it's funny, you don't often hear it as a singular, it sounds funny. Anyway, it's the correct word. An alga lives within the little strands of the fungi, and it photosynthesizes, and produces sugar, carbohydrate, with which it feeds itself and the fungi with which it lives. And the fungi, in return, that's why it's a symbiotic relationship and not parasitic. Parasitic would be one species taking from another. Symbiotic means they both benefit. The fungi offers protection from the environment by having more structure to it, but it also traps water, so it provides water to the alga. And the yeast is there. I can't remember why. I did know. I've forgotten. The yeast is also there for a reason. I do know as well that they have tried to grow lichen in laboratories and failed until they realised that there was also yeast involved. So that's what a lichen is. There are, I think, something like 20,000 species of lichen worldwide, and they live in nearly every possible environment imaginable. So from Arctic tundra to desert to, here in Britain we see them in deciduous woodland quite commonly on old or dead trees even. You also see them growing on rocks. And they perform, in nature, they perform a very important service growing on rocks. They actually turn the rocks over time into fertile soil. So lichen are a pioneer species. Sorry, I'm now on a hobby horse. I hope you find this interesting. Otherwise, tune out. Fast forward. They're known as a pioneer species, which means that they can survive in an environment that the bigger sort of plants and fungi and certainly animals can't. So they'll go in, the algal part will photosynthesize, and the chemicals will break down the rocks and turn them into, over time, over a lot of time, into fertile soil, so that then other plants can come and colonise, and so on and so on, and fast forward into the future and you get a woodland, all thanks to the lichen. This habit they have, I just read this recently, or this ability they have to turn rocks into soil is great in nature, where they evolved to do just that, but on man-made stone structures it can be a problem. I just read that they're having problems on Mount Rushmore, that the lichen are eating away at the faces, and they're having to keep cleaning them off. Anyway, so that's what they are and where they grow. There are even lichen that grow underwater, a few species I believe, and there are some species that grow inside rocks. Now they can't be photosynthesizing because there's no sun. I don't know how those ones feed. I know as well that they can survive in space, that they have attached lichen to the nose cone of the Soyuz capsule, the shuttle that goes up to the International Space Station. And it survived. And I also know that they're one of the few species of living things that can survive complete dehydration. I mean, there are many mosses can survive quite a lot of dehydration and be rehydrated and they're still alive. There are fungi that can, there are certain things that can tolerate drought. There are plant species, like cacti and so on, that can tolerate drought, but that's because they store water within themselves. Lichen can be completely desiccated, no water left in, not one single molecule, for a great length of time, and then water comes back and the lichen revives. I hope I'm getting across how much I love the stuff. I said it again. I think I'm going to do a great big eyelet in the middle of that space. I just feel like it. I'm not going to cut a hole, I'm just going to do a, you know, a normal eyelet and do it quite wide apart and then see if I'm going to come back and fill in or not. Yeah, so it's very resilient. Having said that, it's also very susceptible to pollution, and it's even used as an indicator of air pollution. You know, it's used as a it's used as a litmus test in a way, as to see if an environment is polluted or not, because some lichen are very sensitive and they'll just turn up their toes if there's the slightest bit of pollution. And I chuckle when I say litmus test, because litmus paper, you know, the paper that we use to, I use it when I'm doing my indigo vat, and litmus comes from a species of lichen that reacts to the acid or the alkali in something and tells you. There's now a fly in here. We're going to have Stella and the fly. I think she's too tired after playing with Nell and racing around the woods. Lichen grows often on a substrate, and it's referred to as a substrate because it's growing on it. It's not a parasite. It does no harm whatsoever to a plant or a tree that it's growing on. There are even lichens that grow on leaves. They're doing no harm at all. Often people think because you see it often on dead wood that the lichen has killed the wood. That's not the case. It just wants to live on the dead wood. The lichen itself growing on the dead wood is not dead. It often looks dead because it's quite dry and crumbly and crunchy, and people think it's dead. And I've heard people say, oh, I can gather the lichen because it's dead, it's on dead wood. No, the lichen is not dead. Even lichen that's blowing around the place is not dead. That's one of the ways it reproduces. It breaks up into little fragments, and all the little fragments blow about until they each find somewhere to call home, somewhere where there's water and where they can attach themselves and carry on growing. And it's very slow growing. It's less than 1 millimetre a year. And there are, like I think I said, there are about 20,000 species globally. I think there are about 1,500 species in the UK. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's something like that. And a lot of them are endangered, critically endangered. And I do not have the knowledge to tell one from the other. You know, there are some that are common and some that are endangered. And that's why I don't use lichen for natural dyeing. I'm often asked, because I'm known as a natural dyer, but because I don't have the knowledge, I'm not happy to gather an organism and put it in a dye pot when I'm not sure that it's not endangered. And I think even if I did know that it was common, even if I did have the knowledge to tell one from the other, because sometimes it's really hard to tell them apart. You know, I can tell an oak leaf from a maple leaf, that's obvious, but two pieces of lichen, not so much, not so obvious. But if you think about it, if you pick up a piece of lichen that's 1 inch square, you know, 1 inch, that small a piece, it grows at a rate of less than 1 millimetre a year. 1 inch is about 2.5 centimetres, so 25 millimetres. That little 1 inch square of lichen has taken more than 25 years to attain that size. So that's why I don't pick up lichen. That's just me being me, you know, you do you. And like I say, I do fully acknowledge that I have a bit of a thing for it. I just find it fascinating. I'll just have a look at my notes, see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you about it. Told you that. I think I've told you everything that I wrote down. Often if I write things down, I can keep them in my head for a short space of time just because I've written them down. Oh yes, that's the final thing, and very important thing, is that lichen is known as a keystone species, which means that in relation to its size and, you know, the quantity of it, it has a disproportionately positive effect on the environment that it's in. So it's ultra important for its environment. That's known, and it comes from, you know, the keystone in architecture. When you build an arch or whatever, there's that one stone that's keeping the whole thing up. So yeah, there endeth the K3N lichen loving discourse, let's call it. And there cometh on the fridge. Don't know if you can hear that. That's my fridge. That was a little job I had to do the day before yesterday. My second-hand fridge had a damaged seal. The guy who sold it to me was completely open and honest about the damaged seal. It was pointed out to me. But anyway, I finally got round to getting a new seal and changing it. And that was easy to do and very satisfying. What you do is you just pull the old one out and pop the new one in. Just like that. That was literally a 5-minute job. Right, so I've done that little eyelet, just because. And I think I'm going to put some of that lacy stuff somewhere in there. So I'm just going to stitch myself round back up to this area here. I've now got, you know that song, We'll Gather Violets? I'm not going to sing it to you. We'll gather violets in the spring again, and we'll walk together down a country lane. I think it's an old music hall song. I've got that in my head, but only lichen, because I talked about gathering lichen. I won't gather lilacs in the spring again. No, lichen. I won't gather lichen in the spring again. And the other thing, just to finish, about not natural dyeing with lichen, is that the colours you can get with other things, you know. Like I say, if you take a leaf from a tree, and I more often than not take the leaves from the ground under the tree, and even there they're useful, even there you're taking, because they'll become, you know, if left they'll become mulch and soil and so on. So always forage respectfully would be my request. But you're taking one leaf from a big tree, as opposed to, you know, if you take enough lichen for dyeing, you take a pot full. That's hundreds, if not thousands, of years worth of growth in that pot. Just saying. And now I'll stop saying. Right. Let's have some of this lacy stuff. And have this raggedy end. Tears so nicely. I'm just going to sort of half twist, half, maybe still a bit big. You know, not tiny scraps really. It's a good way to make a mess, this as well. I'm going to just put it across that red, just because there's a very strong line there. So in order to break up the line, I'm going to just cross it. That's my thinking. I'm very far away, so I'm going to stitch some stitches. Stitch some stitches. Make some stitches, rather than just jump up to there. And put some stitches into that. So I'm not really doing any particular kind of stitch, it's just stitching. Just going in and out. Why are you looking at me, Stels? You remember that I do sit and talk to myself occasionally for no apparent reason. She's looking at me like, well, who are you talking to? It's the lovely people. You remember the lovely people. She's laid back down. There you go, let's just soften that line and added a bit more texture. Oops, now I've got a knot. Oh, remind me. One day soon I'll do a live. The only thing is I have to sort out a webcam, because I can't do it. I film with my phone, as many of you know, and I think you need a proper webcam. And I've got a tablet, but it's ancient, you know, like medieval. And I'll just have to sort out the, you know, the technical side of it, because I don't have a PC or anything like that anymore. So yeah, but I would love to do a live now I've got the broadband. And then you can talk back to me when I ask you these things. Won't that be fun? I might just come off the edge there into that space with that bit. I hope you enjoy doing this. I think it is very absorbing, it can be. My process is just to kind of stitch everything on that I want to stitch on, and then go back and do, you know, make this is kind of, the stitching here has two purposes. One is to hold the stuff on, and two, it is adding colour and texture, of course it is. But then go back and maybe do French knots, or, you know, more definite seed stitch and things like that afterwards. I think I'm going to do actually some seed stitch to hold this down because it's quite a big flat area. So just to keep it, you know, I don't want to do a straight line of running stitch or anything. I want to keep it organic. Hope I'm in the middle of the thing and everything. It'd take me. It's funny, it's the same desk, it's the same green cloth that you're used to seeing, it's the same camera stand. The chair's different. I used to have a big office chair, but it was too big and not attractive, because I'm in my living room. It was not an attractive thing to have in the living room, so I've got my little dining chair to sit on, but then I had to put a cushion because I was too low down. Like my chin was on the desk. Alright, so that's that bit done. And then it's worth standing back every now and then if you're working like this and just looking, you know, looking at what you're doing and what's happening, and thinking what you want to do next. You can, of course, also just stay within it and just keep on stitching. Just, you know, up to you. No right or wrong. And you can put as much fluff on as you like of this fluff. I didn't say it, it rhymes with it, but I didn't say it. So you could leave this really fluffy like this, or you could really stitch it into it really, you know, really a lot. I feel like doing some French knots now. I think that's enough holding down stitching. You know, maybe this piece needs couching a bit. Maybe I'll couch this first and then go into French knot mode. Colour maybe some green. I think that's a bit bright. This greyish green. A bit on the end that's already cut, yes. Yeah, a little bit, it'll do for starters. Oh, Fred's woken up, they may now be wrestling. Still a ticking on the floor. It's because she's gone into the kitchen. There is a rug going to go down in the kitchen, but it's still wrapped around my mirrors and pictures at the moment. I've still not got round to getting those on the wall. Right, so I'm going to start down here. Actually, I'm going to start here and couch round this little strand with my unconventional way of doing the couching. Which, if you're new here, is when you couch, most people go over. I'll show you, I'm showing you something if you want to look up. When they're couching, most people go over and then come back like that with the needle. Here comes Fred, which gives you a diagonal line on the back. The rhythm of that doesn't suit me. I go over, stay on the same side, take a little stitch forward, and then come back, stay on the same side, take a little stitch forward. So I would say, as always, try both, see which you like best. If you've done couching for years the other way and you're comfortable with that, then, you know, that's fine. Fred's coming in. Are you coming in? Oh, he's just out of shot. I can't see what I'm doing anymore. There he is. Do you see him? Fred, that's really... Now your tail's up my nose. Can you please... Fred, can you go on or back? Oh, hello. Fred, Fred, come on out the way, my boo. You go on my knee. Do you want to go on my knee? You can't stay there because I'm now completely... I can't do anything. Sit down, that's a good boy. It's alright, now I can just see over you. And the people can just see a bit of your back. Sorry, he's a law unto himself. And I'm being very tolerant of him at the moment. Well, I'm always tolerant, but I mean especially so because he's shut in. He's a shut in. So he's virtually getting away with what he wants. If he wants to wrestle and jump on my head at 3 o'clock in the morning, he's allowed. Styles. If he wants to sit in my way while I'm making a video so I can't see what I'm doing, apparently he's allowed. What is it? I hope you can still see what I'm doing if you need to, around the cat. I'm now going to purr. Yeah, well, nudging my hand is not really very helpful. Right. So that little dangly bit's now all stitched down. I don't think I've got enough left now for French knots, so I'll have to get a bit more. Yeah, Styles has an allergy to a fungus, not a lichen, but a fungus, that is on the skin of all dogs, and some breeds are allergic to it. And she has tablets for it, and but it is, like many allergies, made worse by stress. And although she doesn't seem... Fred, Fred, I can't work under these conditions. Can you? Thank you. Right, he's just going to lay there. Just lay down. That's alright, you just lay down there and I can manage now to work round you. Yeah, so although she doesn't seem stressed, obviously it must be stressful going to live somewhere else, and you know. So it's flared up a bit, but I expect she'll be okay. Right, where are these French knots going to come from? I'm going to have to... I seem to be just doing more seed stitching now. And I'm also, that eyelet stitch I did is looking a bit standy outy. Let's use this bit up. Good boy. Now got his head on my arm, my sewing arm. Right, one more stitch. You all know how to do French knots by now, I'm sure. Sorry, Fred, I need the snippies. Yes, I think round this eyelet stitch I need to do some more seed stitching just in the open, and I'm going to cut that because I don't like the way it's making a loop. And now there's another space down there. Right, I was going to do some French knots, Fred, until I was so rudely interrupted by you. And people can't even see you anymore, all they can see is me being awkward. Don't lash your tail. That's what he does. He comes and interrupts me from doing whatever it is I'm doing by sitting on me, whether that's knitting or stitching or reading or writing or, you know, whatever. And then when I carry on doing what I'm doing, under the duress of him being in the way, he starts lashing his tail because he's cross that I'm carrying on doing what I'm doing. He's a tyrant, aren't you? You're a tyrant. But we put up with you because you're a lovely tyrant. And I don't know if I can angle you so you can see him. I'm angling you. If it works, does it work? Can you see him? Can you see the people? Just stand up. Yeah, you can see him now. There he is. I'll put you back normal because that's a weird angle. If you didn't see Fred, you need to look up now because I'm putting it back straight. Do you see him? Very good. There he is. That's my excuse for my stitching being awkward. Stay. Right, so I'm going to do some seed stitching and some French knots. I seem to be not making knots at all when I'm starting off today. A little back stitch is good enough. And I'm doing in and out seed stitch. Sometimes I do stab stitch. It just depends how I feel. Now I'm going to do stab stitch apparently. I need to come back down here. Whoops. And I'm actually making this video on Sunday evening. What in the north of England we refer to as Sunday tea time. I think it's about 4:30 or something. In the full and certain knowledge that my video will upload in about half an hour. Which is a big plus, I must say. Just makes it feel so much more relaxed that I can just do it, you know. And also more authentic, because I'm in the habit of uploading them or scheduling them to be live by 9 AM my time on the Monday. And I know that some of you in the States get it as that early hours of the morning for you, and some of you that are awake at such times get it already. Fred, that's really awkward. I'm going to move you over a bit. Whoops, I've moved the whole thing. That works well enough. So unless I can guarantee that I'm going to be up early in the morning, then I could make it actually Monday morning and upload it straight away. But then I might not wake up in time. And I do watch it back entirely all the way through, even though I often don't edit, certainly these Mondays. These Monday videos, I don't edit them at all anymore, since you all seem to like the lengthy wittering. Right, I'm going to do some French knots now, Fred. Can you do that with the cat laying between your arms? I'm going to do 3 reps. But yeah, no, so it feels more authentic to be making it much more closely to... Oh, Fred! With a cat's tail in the way, to when you actually see it, you know? Because before I was making sometimes on a Thursday for the Monday, to be sure that I would have time to get it uploaded if there are any problems. Now my oughts are flying all over the place, Fred, thanks to your tail. Can you stop lashing? It says, well, stop stitching and just stroke me. I can't. I have to do this for the people. I'll stroke you afterwards. Afterwards we'll take Stella for her evening walk. I'll give you your tea. You can have that while we're out, so you don't get lonely. And then we can watch this back and make sure it makes some kind of sense. And then I can have my tea, which is some leftover pasta. Fred, put it out of the lash zone that I made myself the other day with some veggies that my friend brought me from her husband's garden, and yeah, I made enough for 3 meals in fact, and I had it day before yesterday. I'm going to have it again today, and I put 1 lot in the freezer. Tomorrow we'll have to go and do some shopping. This morning I didn't have any bread anymore, so I had to have crumpets for breakfast, which was no hardship. Do you know what crumpets are in other parts of the world? They're like a yeasty thing. They've got little holes in the top and a flat bottom. I think they're cooked on a griddle. You can make them at home yourself, but I bought them in the supermarket. I had those with honey, melted butter and honey. It's very naughty, but it's, you know, a little treat. Fred. There's no point in telling him, I don't even know why I'm trying. I'm going to put you on the floor in a minute if you don't stop lashing your tail. I'm sure it's irritating. Is it irritating? Which probably they're not even watching anymore, they're only listening, so. And most of them love you, so they'll probably put up with it. Yes. Right, I'm going to go back to seed stitching now. That's enough French knots. So that middle area there, although it's now got stuff in it, yes, I said stuff again, it's different to the really textural area with the bits and bobs. It's like a pendulum on a clock, your tail. He says, well, you're not listening to me, I'm telling you to stop what you're doing and pay attention to me. Right. Right, now I want a few French knots in among, just to marry the two areas together, I think. Put my arm down on your tail to stop it from swishing. I think I'm just going to do 2 wraps. You can vary the wraps, you know, you can have all different size knots. What I like as well, I haven't got any, like I said, I couldn't find them, but is to use French knots and then beads of a similar colour all mixed in together. I think that always looks nice. So you've got the same colour, the same form, but you know, a different material. Right, that's enough of you lashing now. Come on. Come on. Good boy. Go on the floor. Go and see stills. And go on the sofa. I'm sure if any of you are actually watching, it probably is a bit annoying to have a tail swishing backwards and forwards. But I hope you can see that if you did this on a bigger scale, you know, or even just on small scales, or lots of little ones, lots of individual ones would also, can you imagine lots of those all displayed on as if they were, you know, samples? That would look nice as well. It's very absorbing to do, and very you know, meditative, making it up as you go along, kind of. Intuitive is the technical term, I think, for making it up as you go along. I'll do 3 wraps there, just for a change. Because you're really responding to the texture that you're creating. And because you start just by slapping something on there, you know, a mass of whatever you've got, it gives you something to work with. That's why I think it really is something like sculpturing, you know, taking a lump of clay. And often they say, don't they, about sculpture, that the sculptured form is within the clay and the sculptor just brings it out. I like that. I like that as an idea. Oh, the other thing I want to say before I forget, should have written it down, but I didn't, is I occasionally post, if you go to my profile here on YouTube, you'll see that there's the list of my videos and so on, and then there's little tabs across and it says posts, videos, playlists, etc. Because then you can click there on playlists, for example, and then you get all the playlists, so you'll see all the videos sorted into, you know, the Mondays, the Wednesdays, or tutorials, or there's now one for my Park Home Life series that I've just started. But anyway, the tab that says community there I sometimes just do a post, so it might just be words, or it might be words and a photo. And I hadn't realised till someone pointed out to me that not everybody knows about that, because this person had just found the community tab. I think it was Susan. and she said, oh, she just found it, she didn't realise I was posting there. So I'm telling you all, in case you're interested, every now and then I might put something there, just might be something about a forthcoming video, or it was recently to tell you that I was here safely with Stella and Fred, back here from France, and just things like that, just little messages to you. So yeah, so I'm telling you, so I didn't forget. And oh, the other thing that is a question that I often get when I say in videos, I'll put a link in the description. Not everybody knows how to get to the description box. If you look under the video, when you haven't got it, in full screen mode, you'll see there'll be the title of the video. So this will say week 38, Nature's Textures. And then next to that will be a tiny little word more. And if you click on that word more, then the description box opens. And that's where I put the links that I mention in the videos, and there's a link to my Facebook group and my Ko-fi, and any further information I want to tell you about the video itself is in that box. So I hope that's all okay for those of you that didn't know that. Right, my thread is too short now for a French knot, but it's probably just long enough to do a couple of seed stitches. And I think I want to put a different colour in there with the green as well, because it's a bit standy-outy at the moment. All that green. But now my fridge has stopped. You can hear how lovely and quiet it is here. It's very peaceful and nice. But there are people, I really like that it's so peaceful and nice, but there are people around. You go outside and there are people to talk to. You can, already I've been here a week, more or less to the hour at this moment. And obviously I was here those few weeks decorating. But now I know that if I need anything or just want to chat, I can just go out of my door and there's 2 or 3 households of people that I could already approach. People are just so friendly. This is a tiny little bit of cream. It's 4 strands, maybe I'll just use all 4. Why not? Which means I need a bigger needle. I'm just going to put a few seed stitches in among that green. Here and there. Again with no knot, I'm just feeling like it. That will pull through now. Can you hear that little dog barking? If you can, he's called Jasper. He only barks if someone walks, and he only barks while the person's walking, and then he stops. He's cute. There you see, he's stopped now. And Stella is not a dog that barks when another dog barks, as you will have heard or not heard. Now that's better. And you see, just adding that other colour, which, oh, there he goes again, someone else walking. And now Stella's going to bark. They like to make you out to be a liar. No, it's someone walking by. Yeah, because it's a similar colour to the eyelet as well, it's just blending everything together. If you look at something that doesn't look right, the answer is usually more stitching, I find. You just keep stitching till it looks right. Now, who in the UK watches Strictly Come Dancing? Hands up. Or in other countries where they have their own version. I think in the States, do you call it Dancing with the Stars or something of that kind? I didn't watch it for a long time, and then I was with my mum. I'm trying to think how long ago it was. I think it was about 2008. This is the 20th year of the British version of it. Anyway, it started last night. So yeah, no, I was with my mum and we went to visit friends of hers, or ours, and they watched it, and I think it was the first episode, and I'm saying, oh, I want to watch ballroom dancing, you know. It's not interesting. And of course I got utterly sucked into it and watched it ever since. And it started last night here in the UK. Right. Put that in that pile of stuff. I said it again. Prizes to anybody who counts how many times I said stuff, including that time, and puts it in the comments. When I say prizes will just be my admiration. Although at one point I will do a giveaway or something like that. I know lots of people do things like that. I think maybe I should do something like that at one point. I think I'm happy with that now. I'll just look at it. Yeah, I think I'm very happy with that now. I think I'm going to call it done. I'm going to pause you and take a photograph because of the difficulty of putting it in my journal and then photographing it via Mo. Okay, done that. So now here's my journal. Put all my stuff back in the basket. I don't have a quote as such this week, but of course if you have got something specific to whatever your inspiration material is, then you can do a quote. I'm just going to, I do like it against the page. Not many pages left. I'm just going to write nature's textures underneath. I'll stitch it in first. I'll stitch it. I'd like to stitch it along the top, which is going to be tricky, but I'm going to do it anyway. I need a bit of something to stitch it with. Did turn you back on, didn't I? Yes. I just wondered if I was really just talking to myself, but I did turn you back on. A little bit'll do. Big. Fred's now sleeping back on the sofa. He didn't take offence at all that I evicted him from the table. I haven't stitched my home in yet. I must do that. And I haven't done some more on my, where is it, on this. I must do that as well. Maybe I'll do that this evening. Right, so I will make a knot to attach it to the page. Oops. And I've got the knot on the front. Why not? Why not? See what I did there? Someone commented, I'm sorry I can't remember who, about my voice. And it hadn't struck me, but no throat clearing. And I know it's later in the day and not first thing in the morning, but you know, sometimes emotional or you know, things you're going through show up physically, don't they? And I think the person that commented that maybe had a point. Right. Do we want a dangle? Have we got a dangle? I've got this one little tin here that I had at my friend's with some beads. I'll find something appropriate. A lot of those are too big for this purpose. Talk amongst yourselves while I poke around in my beads. About that one. That's nice. That's kind of a pale blue. There we go. I'm just going to tie it in a knot, I think. Pure and simple. Come here. just like that. Like so. But yeah, and a couple of other people said something about that they enjoyed the park home life, but I think they were worried, or I got the impression they were worried that I was moving away from doing the stitching. Absolutely not. Park home life is in addition to, and I've kept it here on the same channel rather than make another channel, because I don't see why not. You know, you don't. I know many of you watch only Monday, many of you watch only Wednesday, some of you watch both. It's the same with the park home life. You don't have to watch all of the videos I make every week if you don't want to. Of course you don't. So I didn't really see a reason why. I think maybe the reason is something to do with the YouTube algorithm and how you know, your videos are recommended and shared and all that, and you muddy the waters by mixing subject matters together. But I'm not really bothered about that. You know, this is a community, and we stitch and we talk about all other kinds of things as well. So anyway, enough wittering, Catherine. We witter here. So the date is the 16th of the 9th, 24. Gone off the edge there. It's a K3N Kiss, and I'm calling it Nature's Textures. Like I said, it doesn't have to be nature if that's not your thing. And I'm going to put lichen. And I am also going to add a symbiotic relationship. There we go. So that's week 38. So I hope you enjoy that, and I will be very interested to see what you come up with, those of you who post your photos online, either in my Facebook group or on Instagram. You know, to see what your inspirations are and how you interpret them. But that's mine, lichen. I'm liking it, sorry, couldn't resist. And as always, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and for watching. And I look forward to you joining me next time for more Cloth Tales. Bye bye.